Hey, welcome to Business Beats. Lawrence here. Today we're talking about belief systems, everything to do with your belief system. Where did they come from? What are they? How to identify them and unpack them? Like, do you have good belief systems? Or do you have bad belief systems that are pulling you back and holding you back from achieving what you want? So thank you for joining. Let's dive in. So let's begin, right? Let's start where do they come from? Think about that. Most people's belief systems, by the way, they have no idea where they've come from. And in most instances, from what I can see, is they come from adolescence, right? When you're growing up through a family, you have a social environment and you're onboarding all these belief systems through that environment and you don't even know. Like in most instances, your family will first install their belief systems on you as a child. And you don't have a choice, right? And you onboard those, and you're not at the capacity or the term of life where you can make a decision on whether you believe in that belief system or whether you don't. You actually don't get a choice. So they put their religious beliefs on you first, and then they'll put their life beliefs on you second, right? And then it starts to grow from there, stage after stage after stage. You get out of adolescence, you move into adulthood, and all of a sudden your whole life is governed by belief systems that you did not have a decision in formatting for yourself. Right? So understanding that and even thinking of that concept, you're operating off an operating system that you didn't build. Now, it's not to say that you know how to build your operating system, but you should at least in early adulthood have a decision on what you think that looks like for yourself, right? The second part to that is I think belief systems should be analyzed and changed. As you go through periods of life, I think there's 4 cycles of a human being's life. By the way, I think the life expectancy for humans has increased by 10 years, right? I think it's 83 now. You are going to walk through 4 cycles of life. Now that means your belief systems may need to be reviewed and edited and changed, right? Why would you not do that? It might be 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 in your life cycle. But let's go back to what your parents did to you. Yeah, that's right, it's their fault. I'm joking. It's not their fault, but they only know what they know, right? Your parents only know what they know. I remember my father was a very strong man, suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome after the war, didn't really know how to deal with that. So he suffered from a lot of anger issues, stress and anxiety, right? He had certain beliefs about the government, he had certain beliefs about war, he had certain beliefs about life, right? Now, he installed those beliefs into me when I was a young child, right? Working in the country on a farm, I was working with him every weekend, side by side. And through that style of communication and those conversations, what happens is what you're not aware of is that those conversations turn into belief systems. So what my father was telling me was the anchoring component and composition of my belief system as I moved into adulthood. Didn't have a choice, right? It was forced upon me. Everything from my father's belief systems to how he viewed the world, right? And what I soon realized after I had gained some knowledge about life through reading books, I started to question it. I said, well, hang on a minute. Why is it so and it's not this? For me, at least, right? So I had a big question mark. I left home relatively early because of that analysis and then started to find my own way, right? But it didn't take me long as I'm walking through life. You get a job, you move out of home, you go to university, and you do all of these things and you meet new people, and those people give you different belief systems because they've been raised by different people, right? And different socio-demographics, by the way. So the belief systems will change depending on where you grew up, what country, and what political belief systems there were. Even to the point of, was there war in that country? Is there large amounts of poverty in that country? Is it a highly politicized country? So all of these things will form a belief system, believe it or not. And you have no idea that that's happening to you. So all I'm saying is, not to say that every belief system that your parents instilled on you and at a younger age is not correct, but you should at least have the opportunity to identify it, understand it, and analyze it, and then make a decision on whether you want to improve it. Change it. 2.0, remember? That's what I said, 2.0. So I did that and it worked well for me. Otherwise, I think what would have happened is I would have stayed in that small country town, onboarded my father's belief systems, carried those through to the day I die. Man, that wouldn't have been good for me. I don't think I would have had a happy life if I had done that. But here's the impetus and the thing that changed everything. is I picked up a book when I was 19 years of age, and I read that book and it changed my life, right? It was a Dale Carnegie book, and I've spoken about this before, but what it forced me to think about is, okay, so I don't have to listen to my father. I can come up with my own belief system based on real information in the decade that I was growing up in. Okay, so he was pulling data from when he was a child, right? And he went to war young. I think his brother, his father, and himself, they were in their early 20s, right? So a lot has passed since then. You know, we're not the same world that we were 500 years ago. Everything is different. So I suggest that if you feel your belief systems are holding you back, why don't you just write them down, analyze them, and try to figure out through knowledge, right? You can get this through books, and you can consult with specialists, and you can really start to form a solid belief system for yourself that will help you progress through life. Otherwise, you might have a belief system that's pulling you back and preventing you from growing, preventing you from earning more money, being successful, having a great relationship, having a great marriage, having a good relationship with your children, with your employer, having a great job, having a great life, right? Belief systems are the foundational principle that will guide you through your life for the rest of your life. So give it a little bit of attention. I think it's really important. So I'll jump onto a couple of things. There's some things that I've learned in the reanalysis of my belief systems that changed my life. Because I believe that life was hard, right? My father used to tell me that, son, life is hard. What else did he say to me? Son, keep your head down, right? Work hard and keep your head down. Don't get any attention, right? So these are the belief systems that he installed in me. And they held me back, actually. I think it took me quite a few years to break those belief systems because I don't have those anymore. I am going to work hard, don't get me wrong, but that's not the only reason that I'll be successful is just through sheer hard work, because it just doesn't work out that way. I'm not going to keep my head down. Why would I do that? I'm going to put my head up so I can see things, right? And seek and look for opportunity, right? And keep to yourself. It's like, stay under the radar, son. Well, it doesn't even make sense to me now. Then I went, yes, Dad, I understand. So work hard, keep my head down, don't say anything to anybody. You know what I mean? Don't talk to strangers, and don't talk about the things that you believe in. That's what he told me. Don't talk about the things you believe in. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't talk to anyone at any time about anything. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And I didn't think it was fair, right? So imagine I take that belief system through my life. I'm turned 30 or whatever, and I have a couple of children, and then I grab those belief systems and then just drop them in their life, right? Now, what hope do they have to progress through their life unless they do an analysis, reinvent themselves, change those belief systems and move forward? So I'm inhibiting people to success and achieving the things they want to achieve in their own lives, making their own decisions by those old draconian belief systems that were installed on us by our parents. Now, look, I'm not putting it all on the parents. It's not just the parents, it's the people you hang out with, that you went to school with, it's the teachers, it's the sports coaches, all of these people, right? Anyone that you spend a large amount of time with who has a particular belief system can install that into your life without you knowing. It's like they've just plugged in a USB and downloaded it into your brain and then pulled it out and ran in the other direction. For those young kids who are wondering what a USB is, man, you're going to have to Google that. I'm not going to go into it. But it happens all the time. So keep your head down, son. Just work hard. Keep your beliefs to yourself. And man, that was just such bad advice for me. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. I had a couple of mates that sort of weren't like that, right? So they've grown up in a different environment with different parents, in a typical different social environment, right? We're a poor family. We didn't have a lot of money. We're a farming family in those days, really, really tough lifestyle. And when you're with parents, I think, who are a little bit war-torn and they're carrying that anger and that hurt from that time, their belief systems are just a little bit messed up, right? They just are. And it's not their fault. I realized later in life, there's no point in blaming my father. It's not his fault. He didn't know. And there was no support around for those guys then who came back home from the war, right? It's like they were just left on their own to figure it out. So, he ended up becoming an alcoholic, became quite abusive. He was pretty aggressive, and he was a hard worker, and he built a couple of businesses and was relatively successful to a point. It took him later on until his years to do that before he died, but it's very difficult for some people. And what I'm saying to you, and the reason why I'm saying that, is you have every choice on the planet to you right now in the 21st century. You have access to every single piece of knowledge on your handset. 50 years ago, you had to read encyclopedias to get knowledge, and it was only to a limited amount of people who had access to that information. Now you have access to every piece of information on the planet, so the knowledge is there, right? You can learn this stuff. So when I talk about belief systems, go and learn it. What are they? Unpack it psychologically and figure out how you can reconstruct it to help you be better. To strive to be better, to succeed and get the things that you want, because the only thing that will limit you, and you've heard this before, is limiting belief systems. And I truly believe that, 100%. I think without the right belief system, it's very difficult to move forward in your life. So lesson there, right? Certainly was for me, and I hope you get something out of that. So I've got new belief systems now, so I'm going to pivot a little bit to all those negative ones. Lawrence, it's too hard. Don't even try it. You're going to waste your time. You're never going to be anything. You're not going to be successful. So don't even try. Money is bad. There's all these belief systems that people install, right? So let's put that to one side. I get it. You guys will figure that out, and you probably know. Now, how do you construct new belief systems? Like I said, knowledge. I got mine from books, and it doesn't mean to say that that's the only place that you can learn about belief systems for yourself. Put yourself around good people. What's that statement? You are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. 100%, I truly believe that. If you're hanging out with the wrong people, I guarantee you their belief systems will be negative. And if they are, you'll end up in the same bucket, right? So you've really got to select the right people to hang out with. Those people who hold you accountable, who push you, who tell you, who have your back, right? Who say to you, you know what? I know you. I know this is going to be hard, but I think you can do it. And you've got my support. So anything you need, let me know. And I'm there every step of the way with you. Those are the people you want to hang out with. I watched this interview with Robert Greene, who was interviewed by Ryan Holiday, and he was talking about when someone has some success, what they noticed in some of the research, and it was video research, by the way, they interviewed these people, is that there was a placebo effect in the interview. I can't remember what it was, but I don't think they know they were being filmed for a particular reason, but they were for this. What was the response when someone told the other party bad news? To cut a long story short, what happened in those interviews on the data set was saying that the majority of people were happy that the person failed. I don't know if you've heard of tall poppy syndrome, but it's a real thing, right? So you've really got to surround yourself with the right people, because that's a bit of a punch in the face. That the majority of participants in the interview process through that research, it's sort of stated that the people that failed and were unsuccessful and had bad news, the opposing candidate was somewhat happy to see that in them. So it's like that sadness, right? If I was to unpack tall poppy syndrome in a really simple paraphrasing way, is we love a battler, right? We love someone who's failing, who's not doing well. We get behind that person, right? But when they become successful and they start to talk about it, we hate them. Yep, we rain down on top of them. We don't like them. We talk about them negatively behind their backs. We're nice to their faces, and we sort of bag them out a little bit. So when I say that, there's certain belief systems that weave itself into that, into those elements, right? So all I'm saying is, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. It's not always your parents' fault. Make sure you're hanging out with the right people. I think those are probably the 2 most critical things that I could say in terms of trying to identify the right belief systems. Religious belief systems we're not going to go into. Man, there's so much to unpack there. I think religion is great. I do. And I think it's everyone has their own story with that. There is a lot of heritage attached to religion. So I'm just going to leave that out for now, and maybe that's for another time. So my belief systems. Okay. So I've got a couple of big ones that I anchor my life on, and they have become part of who I am. I'm not going to change them at this stage of my life. I've had them for quite a long time, and they are the epicenter of everything that I talk about, how I operate, what I believe in, how I see the world, and the decisions I make for myself and my family, right? So the first one is, everything is my fault. Everything is my fault. 100% I believe that. Now, people can go, well, that's crazy. right? Robbie just said to me before when I mentioned it to him, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Because everything is not your fault. Yeah, but imagine if it was. Imagine if you had the mindset that everything is your fault was the epicenter of where you lived. Now, this may seem a little bit weird, but for me, that's where happiness lives. Because that means that no one can let me down, right? That means my expectations in life for everyone around me, including my children, my friends, my family, business partners, employees, everything is not their fault, it's mine. Like, I think if you can get there, that's where happiness lives. I believe that truly to be the case myself. That is a belief system from a lot of successful entrepreneurs, but it's a very hard one to take hold of, right? To really sort of capture and really believe it, because it's so big and it's so grand. Everything that happens is my fault. You know, if a plane flew into this building right now, thank God that doesn't happen, you know, it's my fault. I'm responsible for that. In some way, shape or form, I'll find a connection to it. It might not be the initial core responsibility of everything, but maybe it's a byproduct of what happens after that, right? Like how I feel about that, how I think about it, how I handle myself, the decisions I make about it, the stories I tell myself 5 years later after the events occurred, right? But somehow everything is my fault. So the failure and the lack of success is on me when you wrap all of that up in that one statement. I have another one. You've heard it before. The obstacle is the way, right? So how are your biggest challenges your biggest opportunities? How are your biggest challenges your biggest opportunities? Now, that was certainly not a belief system that was given to me by my parents. They said to me that, look, there's not a lot of opportunities in this world. They basically told me, just settle down, get a job, get married, get a dog, have a white picket fence and a station wagon, and don't upset anybody, and just stick to yourself. Now, if I listened to them, you wouldn't be watching this video today, and I'd probably have a pretty miserable life, right? So just think about that. Some of these belief systems and the things that you say to yourself are critically important. I believe that to be the case, you know, you want to put a little bit of importance on how you construct these. But think about that, right? The obstacle is the way. So what gets in the way becomes the way. Is another way to, it's an old Stoic philosophy. I'm a bit of a Stoic. I think some of that stuff is great. It's pretty strong and it's really proactive. So the obstacle is the way for me means that anything that hits me, and lots of things hit me, I become very resilient to it, and I look at it and go, okay, well, this has happened. That's good, fine. It's no use putting on my poopy pants and being negative about it for 5 days. So I choose to get over it instantly. In an instant, when something bad happens to me, within 3 to 5 seconds, I'm over it. And now I'm looking at it through a different lens. And that lens is, how can this work for me? So it can be anything in business, your personal life, you know, family, friends, or you apply it to everything in your life. And for me, everything changed when I did that. And I onboarded this belief system probably about 15 years ago. And it's worked well for me, very well for me. So I don't stress out. I don't suffer from anxiety. You know, depression or any of that sort of stuff, because I know that bad things are going to happen, and it's okay. You know, no one is going to die, right? You just have to punch through and move forward. So if a bad thing happens to me today, this afternoon, I get into a car accident, for example, no harm, no foul. People get into car accidents. I don't need to run around, and I don't need it to affect my life, and I don't need to get all crazy about it. I just need to settle on it, process it, put the right lens on it, and move forward. You know, so, you know, and what would that look like? I don't know. A car accident was probably not the right thing to pick for me to come up with some analogies, but it might be, hey, shit happens. Unless I get a couple of days off in the hospital because my neck's gone out, I'm going to get my laptop, do some reading, spend some time studying, do a course. I don't know. It could be that small, right? It gave me an opportunity. I had an accident. It gave me the opportunity to reevaluate a couple of things, right? It made me think about other things that I've been neglecting for 12 months, which might be this. I'm now going to bring that to the forefront. I'm going to get that done now because it's really important to me and my family. That could happen. Who knows? Right? So you've really just got to think about, and look, it can be pretty stupid, right? Like that wasn't really critically deep, but it can be also practical. It doesn't have to be grandstand, emotional, spiritual type stuff. It's really, really simple stuff. Every day I get hit, I flip it, I turn it into an advantage, right? So those are a couple of things that I believe in. And the byproduct of that is another statement that I say to myself all the time. How can the worst day be the best day? Very similar to the obstacle is the way, but sometimes you have a day that's full of obstacles and it comes down on top of you, right? I know, it's hard, right? Like you know, I had one of those days actually this week, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where everything that could go wrong in the morning went wrong, you know what I mean? And they're little things, right? Like the guy doesn't put the coffee lid on your coffee cup and he spilled it all over himself, so you got to shoot home and change your shirt. Like what a pain in the ass, right? I know it's small and it's entitled and I get it. But then something happened with the kids. Oh, okay, and then this thing happened. And then I got into the office and this thing was wrong. And then an hour later, this thing happened and it went live and it shouldn't have gone live because it was supposed to be run past me. So now I have to pull that back and fix it all. And then I have a meeting and I found out that this happened. And it's like, so you're gonna walk into those days and it's okay. You know, using that belief system of, hey, it's all right. Everything is my fault. The obstacle is the way. And how can this bad day become my best day? Like, just think about that. If you look at it through that lens, you're gonna be happy, you're gonna live a happy life, and things are gonna be great. So, belief systems, you're responsible for them, by the way. I know that people installed them and put them in you, right? And you didn't have a choice. And you love those people that put them in you, right? You know, they were your parents and your closest friends and your lecturers and your teachers, and these are people that are really close to you. But just because they're close to you and you love them, it doesn't mean that it's right. So all I'm saying is, look at your belief systems. Are they holding you back or are they pushing you forward? And trying to determine where you're at, and it's okay to change them, and I think you probably should. And you should do it on a frequent basis. That's worked for me. I hope you get something out of that. I hope that works for you. It's good to put that on the table and talk about it. I really, really believe in belief systems and think that they're critically important to life. So I hope that helped. Really good to talk to you and I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time out. If you haven't already, look, click the subscribe button and we've got some great interviews coming up with some pretty awesome entrepreneurs and artists. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate you watching and look forward to speaking to you next time.